Hello, it's your girl Soroya again with a Thursday Storytime Testimony Talk episode for Kintsugi Talks Pod. If you are new to this podcast, welcome to Kintsugi Talks. If you are not following me or don't know where to listen to me at, you can follow me at Kintsugi Talks Pod. That is KINTSUGI Talks Pod on Instagram, all lowercase letters, all put together with no spaces. And you can listen to this podcast on Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. Now, today's Storytime Testimony episode is about how I beat cancer 3 times. Yes, you heard me correctly. I said 3 times. Without further ado, let's get into the episode. The type of cancer that I was diagnosed with was a blood cancer. It was called B-cell acute lymphoblastic leukemia. I received the first diagnosis of this in April of 2017, the second diagnosis in 2019, and then I received the third diagnosis of it on my birthday, actually, November 30th of 2020. Now, I know a lot of you guys are probably like, how could you have gone through something 3 different times? Like, how is that even possible? And that is what I'm going to be talking to you guys about today. Just my story, what it was like for me, the pain that I went through. I did go through a lot of pain. Both emotionally and physically, and yeah, it was a lot. Hopefully I don't get emotional during this episode, because the last time I talked about it I did. But I first want to give a definition of what this cancer is, like what it does. So B-cell acute lymphoblastic leukemia is a cancer that affects your B lymphocytes. These are white blood cells that grow in the soft center of your bones, your bone marrow. That's what the soft center of your bones is called, the bone marrow. So the B lymphocytes are supposed to grow into cells that help you fight infections, but with this disease, they turn into leukemia cells that live longer than normal cells, and they can reproduce very, very quickly. They build up in your bone marrow and move into your bloodstream, and from there they can spread to other organs in your body. So this is what I had dealt with on 3 different separate occasions. Now, from birth, really, I've dealt with anemia, very, very severe anemia. I was deficient in a lot of different vitamins and nutrients that are crucial to the human body. The main one being iron, and then there was calcium, vitamin B, magnesium, and a few others that I'm not remembering at the moment. And I took my vitamins, and I still do take my vitamins very regularly. But it wasn't until like a bit before April 2017, like a few months before April 2017, that I just started realizing that the stuff that I was dealing with was not normal for people with who just had anemia. I was dealing with very bad nosebleeds. My periods got heavier, severely heavier. My hair was starting to fall out. My weight was decreasing at a very high rate, a rate in which is I shouldn't be losing this amount of weight in such a short amount of time. Body aches all over, an unexplainable pain. And I knew that this was not just anemia, so I went to many, many, many different doctors, and all these doctors refused to test me for cancer, because they said that, oh, like, it's not cancer, it's just anemia, like you just have to keep taking your vitamins. And I'm telling them all these things, and they still wouldn't let me get the test done until I found the right doctor, doctors who I still go to today, because there is a team of doctors that I work with when it comes to my blood and making sure that I'm still okay now to where it doesn't come back. And I went to them, and they actually listened to me, and they did the test to see if there was any possible cancers or diseases. And in April 2017, that is when they found it. And that same day is when I started the cancer treatment. With a disease like cancer, it is usually connected to a mutated gene that could be genetic. And I found that it definitely was a gene that was in the family that I just didn't think I would get. The first person, that I know of to have cancer in my family was my grandmother, Ruth Poindexter. That's where I actually get one of my middle names from, because Poindexter is her last name, so I have that as my middle name. And she died of brain cancer. And then I have my brother, who had a very different type of cancer that spread from his liver to just all different areas of his body. And then I have my niece, who actually had the same cancer as me, leukemia. Is that my cancer that I had, it was like, it was rare that I had the type of cancer that I had, because it was more so common in children than it was adults. And so that is why I was so persistent with doctors, like how I said earlier, of like wanting to get testing done. And when I finally went to a doctor that like listened to me and was willing to give me the test, my assumption, my idea was correct, that it was definitely because of genetic reason. Now we're gonna get into more of the medical stuff that I had to deal with. So, in my first initial testing, I had to get something done called a bone marrow biopsy. For those that are familiar with this, know how much this ish hurts. I can honestly say that because of everything I went through with the cancer, that I have a very high pain tolerance. But it essentially, a bone marrow biopsy, they remove a small sample of the bone marrow inside your bones for testing. It is done using a small needle that is inserted into the bone. Now, you would think inserting it into the bone, that is like, oh, you're wide awake. Or that you're like asleep. Nope. I was wide awake. Wide awake. They put some type of like numbing in the area with like the initial like insertion, which that can only go but so far. Like they don't have any that could go to the bone. So as soon as it made contact with the bone, I was done. I was crying. I was definitely crying, because that's how bad it hurt. And of course, with pain and that, there is a lot of pain involved because of what's happening in the body. So I was in pain a lot. I still deal with that to this day, even though I don't have the cancer anymore. Thank God. I don't have the cancer anymore, but the after effects of it, of me getting the chemo and the different stuff that I physically dealt with, like, I still deal with pain in my bones till this day. So that's why I have to be, like, extra on it with, like, taking vitamins and, like, the amount of activity that I can do physically, like, on myself, you know? So now let's move on to a very scary thing that happened to me. Actually, how do I start this? So there is a term in the hospital, like, they have different codes for certain things that happen. Like, there's a code red, there's a code black, there's a code yellow. I went through something that is called a code blue, which I essentially went into something called a cardiogenic shock. And cardiogenic shock is a condition in which your heart suddenly can't pump enough blood to meet your body's needs. So, yeah, my heart couldn't pump enough blood, and it got to the point where my heart actually stopped. And so I had a code blue. I don't remember a lot of what happened. I just remember 1 minute I was awake. Next minute I felt like I just went into a very, very, very deep sleep. So that was one thing that happened. It was definitely very scary. It was very, very scary, and something that I wish to never happen again, and something that I do not wish on nobody at all. And then the medication, the treatment that I was on. So my treatment plan lasted for like a good portion of the day. I would say like half the day or almost the whole day almost, because it's a process. And the way that I did this was through an IV drip. Now, you get the IV, is like a little needle that is put into your arm that's connected to a vein. And all the medication that I received was through IV drip. Now, I would have to get to the hospital pretty much at the crack of dawn, at a very ungodly hour. I would have to get there at like 6:30, 7 o'clock a.m. to have my treatment start at 7:30 a.m. And also, mind you, all of this I had to go through by myself, because my immune system was already horribly bad, and with the cancer on top of it, I had to be in a room specifically isolated just for me every time I went to get treatment. And then the third time that I got diagnosed, which was in 2020, which we all know what happened in 2020, I had to be alone, and I wasn't allowed to have visitors. I wasn't even allowed to have visitors when the pandemic like didn't exist. So the first treatment that I would get is a platelet transfusion. Very similar to dialysis treatment, where I was hooked up to a machine like IV drip style, and I would get my blood platelets. The bad ones would be taken out that were infected by the cancer, and then good, clean, fresh ones would be put in. And the medication I would take, all of it was liquid, except for an antibiotic pill that is called vancomycin, which is an antibiotic. It was a powder that was added to a liquid that would be put into the IV drip. So that was one that I had to take, antibiotic. I took morphine for pain relief. And then the 2 chemotherapy medications, yes, I was on 2 at the time. I was on 2, doxorubicin and vincristine, which I received again through IV drip. But in the beginning of my treatment, like the beginning, like 2017 to 2019, I actually used to take pills. but they found that the IV drip treatment was better because the IV drip hits the system like more directly, and the pills, obviously when you take a pill, it is slowly absorbed through the body. So that is why they made the switch from pills to IV drip. And I used to be just on one chemotherapy, but then they added a second one onto it. This season in my life, I can be honest in saying that is like I had lost faith in God completely during this season in my life. And in the beginning of this, with my first diagnosis in 2017, I was homeless, dealing with homelessness. So I was just kind of like getting into the attitude of like, okay, like God had me in this for a reason, because like in my last episode where not my last episode, but like in one of my recent episodes where I talk about me being homeless for 2 years and of how God told me that I needed to be more independent on him and be more obedient to him and lean more on him. And so I was like, okay, God, okay. And so I had faith in God just like giving me that confirmation. And he did confirm it, because when I just leaned into that, that's like shortly after I moved into like one of the more better shelters that I was in, started getting like better treatment for my mental health. I got housing very quickly. So I was like, okay, God, thank you. Like, I really appreciate you for this. Like, thank you. And like the lesson that I will like try to continue to like keep with me, you know, of being more dependent on him. And then with this, like, one time, having cancer one time and surviving it is one thing, because we all know like the chances of surviving cancer is not the best. But getting it 3 times, like the second time I got it, I was like, okay, like you gotta be kidding me. Then the third time I was like, all right, I'm gonna die. Like F all this. Like I'm gonna die. And my depression had got to a point where it's like I just like wanted to die. Whereas like if this cancer doesn't take me out, then I might as well do it myself. Like that's how bad it got for me, depression, like mental health wise. And yeah, my faith in God at this point, it was very shaky. And I was just like, whatever happens, happens. I had that very nonchalant, very desensitized way of thinking. And I can honestly say that it was the people that was around me at this time that they had the faith for me that I didn't have. They had the hope for me that I had lost. And if it wasn't for those people, the community of people that I had around me, they know who they are. Then I wouldn't have had like the little bit of hope that I did gain to like see through it to the end. Now you're probably thinking I celebrated it, like had like a party or something, and like nope, didn't have a party. I didn't want to. And I still don't want to be honest, because of the fear that it could come back, and then it's like God or the devil shut me up. That's like, oh, you thought it was over? Think again. It's like the TikTok trend where it's like, oh, you thought you ate? Like, give me that plate. Like, it's almost like that. Which I shouldn't have that fear, but it's a reality, especially with just my medical history. But physically, health-wise, I am doing better. There is no sign of the cancer anywhere to be found. I do monthly check-ins with my doctors regarding that. I'm taking my vitamins. I'm trying to be as physically active as I possibly can to where I don't have too much pain in my body. And yeah, I'm just trying to take it day by day. I think just the emotional part of it, of just the fact that I've dealt with this 3 times and I beat it 3 times, got healed from it 3 times, is something that I know a lot of people don't get to say. Yeah, I am grateful and thankful that I even get to like just share my story, whether it be via YouTube, which for those that do know of me having a YouTube channel, that channel has been just like so inactive, so dead. I think my last video was like 3 months ago or something like that. If you guys would like me to like try to do like podcast videos up there on that channel, or to do more different types of content on my YouTube channel, let me know. But yeah, to be able to be here to talk about this, however, in whatever outlet I use to talk about it, I'm very much aware that it is a blessing. Very much aware, because I know people who have lost loved ones to cancer, and I mean, me being one of them, I lost my grandmother to it. So it's something that I don't take for granted, and I never will take for granted. That is it for today's episode. I really hope you enjoyed it, of me sharing this story of how I overcame this. And my question for you guys listening is, what is something that God and your community of people helped you to overcome? Let me know your answer. Tell me your story, because I would love to hear it. For those that have been continuing to listen to me from the beginning, thank you. And for the new listeners, thank you for joining in on this episode. If you would like to continue to listen to me, please make sure to subscribe and follow me at Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. Follow me on Instagram at Kintsugi Talks Pod. That is KINTSUGI Talks Pod. All lowercase, no spaces in between any of the words or letters. And until next time, God bless.